Good morning everyone. So we'll start with the system software module 1. So where you will be learning the first and second module which belongs to the system software, and third and fourth and fifth which you have already learned, that is with respect to the compiler design. So in the module 1 you will be learning the first, you have the chapter 1, chapter 2 and chapter 4. So wherein the chapter 1 talks about what is exactly a system software and why exactly it is dependent on the machine architecture, and your chapter 2 talks about assemblers. So if you remember the compiler design class, that's module 3, where you have learned the language processing system. When I say any language processing system, it is nothing but the preprocessor and followed by the compiler, followed by the assemblers, then you have the loaders and linkers, then your executable file. So once I give my program, so it will do the pre-processing, then it will go to the compiler where your high level language will be converted to the assembly level language. So that assembly level language is given as input to the assemblers, and the output of the assemblers will be your object code. So that's what you are going to learn in this module, and it also includes the macro processor, so which is very simple, that is you have only 4.1 in your syllabus. So coming to the first chapter, that is Introduction to System Software and Machine Architecture, which includes 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3. So you don't have SIG programming examples as a part of your syllabus. So we'll start. What exactly is software? When I say any software, it is nothing but a set of programs, right? What do you mean by program? A set of instructions. So when I write a software, that means, for example, I want to play a game, right? So it's a software. So how do you play the game? There will be exe file on your system. You just double click that and you play the game. That's my application software, right? So whenever I want to use it, I'll use it and then I'll close that particular software. So now, what exactly is system software? A system software refers, or it is nothing but a set of programs which is written for the particular computer, right? So here you have a definition as a system software refers to a set of programs that are dedicated to manage the computer itself, that is operating system, file management, utilities, database management, text editors, all those comes under system software. If you see the diagram, so here you have the hardware, and in between system software and the upper layer is my application software. So when you want to interact with the hardware, I need the operating system. Along with the operating system, I need all the utilities. When I talk about utilities, those are your commands, or it could be executable files, all those stuffs. And apart from that, I need the system software also. So the system software, that is, the software is divided into two types, that is system software and application software. As I've already told, a system software is meant to manage the computer. But when I talk about the application software, it is also a set of programs which is written for the user purpose, right? As I said, game is an application software, right? So it is not a system software. And system software will start when you boot the system, right? Once I switch on my system, all the system softwares will be booted. But application software will be executed only when the user needs, right? Otherwise, it will not be loaded onto the particular memory. And the system software, that is all the system software, that is operating system, text editors, or CMOS settings, all those comes under your system software. They'll start when the system boots, and when you shut down, they'll stop executing, right? But here in the application software, it is not a general purpose, it is my user specific. When I want it, I'll use, otherwise I'll close the window. So those are the main differences between the system software and the application software. So here you have some of 6 differences between the system software and application software. And one more main difference is the system software is machine dependent, but the application software is not machine dependent. You can host it on any machine and you can execute. Of course, yes, to make it as a commercial product, I can never make the application software as machine dependent. Otherwise, you will not make any money out of it, right? But here the system software is machine dependent, except few of the concepts like your code optimization. If you remember your compiler design class, you have 7 phases. Out of that, one of the last 3 phases is intermediate code generation and code generation. In between those two, you have machine independent code optimization and machine dependent code optimization. So apart from those two systems software, so other things are machine dependent, right? So why exactly it is machine dependent? What is the need to be a machine dependent? That is depends on the architecture. As you know, we have P3 and P4 systems, right? So P3, you might have 32 registers, but in P4 I have 64 registers, right? So I'm telling you the example. If you have like that, then if you remember your operating system class, the first and foremost thing what you learn in OS class is a user space and the kernel space. We cannot use the kernel space for our applications. You have to write your applications in the user space. Even in the kernel space, all the registers are already predefined, right? So that's why when you develop any system software, you should know what is the architecture of that particular machine. How many registers are available, how many registers are reserved for the kernel space, and how many are available for the user space, and what are the different addressing modes. If you remember your microprocessor, you have 8085, 8086, and then you have 8051, that is microcontroller, right? So this you will be aware of all the differences, addressing modes, right? So here also I need to know what are the addressing modes available to develop my system software. At the same time, I need to have an instruction format, right? So when I talk about instruction format, what is the number of bits available for the opcode and the address, okay? Why I need to have the number of bits addresses? If you see your microcontroller, right? So you have a data bus and the address bus. So you can see the number of lines on the data bus and the address bus. When I say in your CO class, they say that the number of address lines available on 8085 is 8. So what do you mean by that? I can have total the number of addresses, that is your memory will be 2 power 8 minus 1. The same way, if I say I have my address lines 2 power 15, then what do you mean by that? I can hold the memory of 2 power 15 minus 1. So that's why I need to have all those stuffs in hand when I develop any system software. That's why we say that system software is always machine dependent. Okay. So out of that, as I've written here, the code optimization and the subprogram linking are not dependent on any machine architecture. Why so is? Why so is? Code optimization, it is a temporary variables which it uses. Okay. So I can use 4 temporary variables. The other person might use 2 temporary variables. At the end of the day, it will be encoded or decoded into the machine instruction itself, right? So irrespective of our temporary variables and all, code optimization does not depend on the machine architecture. And the next one is subprogram linking. So what exactly the linkage is? Your entire project will be divided into different modules, right? One person will develop one module and another person will develop another module. And at the end of the day, the main is the one which is the main module where you get all the executables from. So the person who is executing the main program, he will be linking with all the different modules, which could be either P3, P4 or any other Pentium or whatever the architecture could be. He cannot keep changing the code based on whatever he is executing. So that's why subprogram linking is not machine dependent. Okay. So these, except these two other things are machine dependent. That is, it depends on the machine architecture. Now, for your study purpose, so they have not explained any of the architectures over here. For example, 8085 or 8086 or 80851. Here they are considering the hypothetical machine architecture is just an assumption. Okay, to know the concepts or to learn the concepts, they are explaining with the hypothetical machine architecture. What is the hypothetical machine architecture they have taken into consideration is your SIC machines. So SIC, that is Simplified Instructional Computer. There are two variations on that, that is your SIC XC and SIC machine simple. So XC stands for your extra equipment or extra expensive. So in the first chapter you will be learning what is SIC machine and SIC XC machine architecture. In the second chapter you will be learning how do you write the object code based on the machine architecture, that is SIC and SIC XC. So whenever you learn any machine architecture, the basic things what everyone needs to know is what is the memory space available, what are the number of registers available on that particular machine, and what are the different data formats where I can hold my data, and next is what are the instruction formats and the addressing modes and instruction sets and input output. So we'll go through each one by one. Coming to the memory on SIC machine. So memory is always a 8-bit byte. So as you are all aware of it, 1 byte is equal to 8 bit and 3 consecutive bytes form a word in SIC machine. And all addresses on SIC are byte addresses. And here there are totally 2 power 15 bytes of address in the SIC machine. What do you mean by 15 over here? That is address lines, as I said previously. So 15 represents to the number of address lines. And coming to the registers, there are 5 registers available on the SIC machine. Each register is of 24-bit length. So what do you mean by 24? That is one word, that is 3 consecutive bytes. And here the table below shows the register names and the numbers and the uses of each register. Please, all of you do remember that you cannot write the number as and how you wish. So these are already predefined numbers. Okay. So here it is 0, 1, 2, 8, 9. You cannot continue with 3 and 9. Why do you need to know those numbers is when you are writing the different instructions, when you want to move the registers from one content from one register to the another register, your object code will be based on the number. Okay, so that's why please don't make the mistake over here. Okay, the different registers available are accumulator. As you know, well aware of accumulator, if you don't specify any register name, by default accumulator is the one where every data will be stored. So accumulator is used for all the arithmetic operations until unless you specify the register. And next one is your index register. The number is 1. This is used for addressing. Indexing. What do you mean by indexing is, suppose I have an array of numbers. So I want to fetch the 4th number from the array. So I don't have to start from the 0. I can directly fetch the 4th number, that is A of 3, directly. So for that I use the index register. And the next register name is linkage register. So what I mean by linkage register is, this is used whenever you make the function call, right? So when I make a function call as a C programmer, So when you are aware that when I make a function call, the control goes to the function that is callee, and once all the processing is done, the control comes back to the caller, right? So that's what here J sub, that is jump to the subroutine. I need to hold the address when I come back, right? So that's why I say J sub and R sub will be using the linkage register. The next register which is available on the PC, on the SIC machine is PC, that is program counter. So program counter is the one which you are all familiar with. This holds the instruction to be executed, that is next instructions to be executed. The last register which is available on SIC machine is SW, that is status word. The number is 9. Status word is used when you have some comparison operations. Okay, so what do you mean by comparison? I want to compare the data what is available with me with one more value. So when you compare, you get 3 values, that is either less than, greater than or equal to, right? So when I have less than, greater than or equal to, I need to set the flag, that is CC. So this will be setting the CC code either less than, equal to or greater than. So based on that you will execute the next instruction, that is jump less than, jump equal to and jump greater than, which you have already written in a microprocessor lab. And the next is data format. So what do you mean by data format is what are the different data I can hold, right? So you have different data types, that is integer data, you have floating data, and you have a character and strings and all. On the SIC machine you can hold integer, then negative numbers, then the characters. So integers are stored as 24-bit binary number, and negative it is 1's complement always, and the character is 8-bit. You don't have floating point representation here. And you have the example over here where I have written 5. How do you represent? It is 24-bit, not 8-bit. Okay, so minus 5, it's 1's complement, and A I have written in the form of 8-bit. And once I have a data type, how do I store, right? So how do I store is nothing but your instruction format. So all machine instructions on a SIC machine are 24-bit format, that is 8, 1, 15. 8, 1 and 15. 8 bits are meant for my opcode, and 1 bit is meant for the X, that is indexed or not, and 15 bits are meant for my addressing. Okay, so what do you mean by opcode? So in a MUP you will write add A comma B or add AX comma BX, but when you see the object code, it will be converted to your binary format, right? So you write add, but the computer cannot understand add, right? So it has its own representation, that is opcode, right? So if you remember your MUP programs, for enter key you will write 13H or 10H or something, right? Data segment, code segment. The same way here, okay? So you have to write the opcode, and then X is nothing but whether you are using a indexing or not, and the address is variable. When I declare a variable, it will allocate some memory address for that, right? So what do you mean by variable? It is a name given to some memory location, right? So that address will be written here. Based on that you will write the target address, right? So I know the data formats, I have the instruction format, and what are the different addressing modes which I can use for my application, right? So there are 2 addressing modes. One is direct addressing, the other one is indexed addressing. It's not indirect, it is indexed. So what do you mean by direct? When X equal to 0, this X is set to 0, you say that it is direct addressing mode, that is target address equal to the address, what? The memory address. The content from that address will be fetched, right? And indexed is X equal to 1, target address equal to address plus X. Okay, so that is the content of that particular index where it will be stored, okay, or fetched. So you have an example here, load into accumulator, that is LDA 10. 10 is my variable name, okay, do remember that. 10 has an address that is 1000. That means the variable is stored at that particular address 1000. So this here you have written 1000 in 15-bit format 1000. Okay. So LDA, what is the opcode for load A? 000. How do you know all these opcodes? Because in the exam they will be giving the opcodes. Okay. To write the object code. When you are learning from the book, that is Leland Beck, it is for page number 469, that is appendix A. Okay, so where you have all the opcodes. Okay, but in the exam they will give the opcodes for all the mnemonics whatever they have written. Okay, so if they have forgotten to give, you have to assume and you have to put. So that you have to write a note there and you have to create the object code. Okay, so here it's 0. What will be the target address? Target address equal to 1000 itself. That is, and that particular go to that address, fetch the content what is there in that address and load into where? Accumulator. That is what? The content of the address 1000 is loaded into the accumulator. So how do you make this indexed addressing mode? So store ch buffer comma x. Okay. So store ch in the sense store the character. Okay. Where do I store? In the buffer. And what is the index, at which index you have to specify. So where I have set x equal to 1, and what is the opcode for store ch? It is 54 and buffer address is 1000. Okay, so effective address at the target address is equal to address plus x, that is content of the index register x. Okay, so the accumulator content, the character is loaded to the effective address. That is, from the accumulator whatever is there, that will be stored at that particular index of the buffer. Okay, so that's your two instruction formats. Okay, and the next one is instruction set. So what are the different operations I can do on SIC machine? So one is, the first and foremost is load and store. So you have load into accumulator, load into index register, store from the accumulator and store from the index register. So why only AX? Because you have only 5 registers over there, right? AXL and your PC and SW, right? PC is by default. Once I start executing my program, your base pointer and the stack pointer will be keep moving along with the program counter. Okay. So I have only 2 registers and linkage register cannot be used here because by default that will be used by JSUB, that is when you make a function call. And integer arithmetic operations, here only integer. Why? Because in the data format I cannot hold the floating point numbers. That's why it is add, sub, mul, division. Okay, so that's your what is that? The arithmetic operations what you can do. And here do remember that whenever you make any arithmetic operations, okay, you can do only from the register to the memory. Okay, or memory to register. That's it. There is no register to register arithmetic operations here. Okay, and the comparison operators, so when you compare, as I said, it will use SW register where CC code will be set based on less than, greater than or equal to. And next is conditional jump, that is based on CC, this will be written, that is jump less than, jump equal to and jump greater than. Okay, and next is subroutine linkage instruction, that is JSUB and RSUB. So when I make a JSUB, I have to make or I have to pass the function name where I have to label. We don't call a function over here, we call them as a labels. Okay, so where I have to jump to that particular label, I have to say go to, right? Go to some particular label. The same way JSUB to some label. But RSUB, you don't need to specify the label because it will come back to the next instruction where you called, right? So that is what I have written here. Okay, I make a call add and it goes to the call add, then in the epilogue it goes to the next instructions to be executed. When I do this, I need to hold the return address where I came from, right? The caller, the base address of the caller has to be held. So where will be stored? In the linkage register. Okay, And the last one is input and output. So input output is nothing but you read a character from the input device, or you read a data from the input device and store it somewhere, and output is you read the data from already available register or memory and write onto the output device. But here the very important point to be noted is it can read only 1 byte at a time. If you want to transfer or if you want to read 8 bytes of data, you cannot read all 8 bytes at once. You have to read one byte at a single time, okay, at a time. So that is very important. Before I make any input and output call, I have to check out whether the device is ready to send or receive. Okay, so you have 3 instructions to go hand in hand. That is test device, then you have the test device has to be done, and read, then write. Okay, test device, what do you mean by test device? You have to check whether the device is ready or not. So it will set the CC code less than equal to. Less than means the device is ready to send or receive, equal to means device is not ready. So you have to loop back until the device becomes ready. So once it is ready, you can do the RD. Okay, so every device will be given 1 byte of address. Okay, so it has its unique code. And read device, so it will transfer the byte of data from the input device into the rightmost byte of the register A. Okay, or you can specify the memory location. At the same time, write device will be, it will read the 1 byte of data and it will write onto the output device. So these are the different things what you have to know on that particular machine architecture. So as I said, this one comes for 8 marks. So explain the architecture of SIC machine, okay, where you have to explain all the 7, okay, that is memory, register, data format, instruction format and addressing modes, instruction set and input output. So sometimes what they give, they specify the instruction formats, addressing modes and instruction, whatever they'll give, only they'll specify what has to be explained on that particular machine architecture. So this chapter is very simple because you can score 12 marks or 8 marks very easily. Okay, so this is on SIC machine architecture. Okay, so in the next class we'll see the SIC XC machine architecture. These examples are not there in your syllabus, but still I have written in the notes so that you will understand, and I have put the document also, that is each one what exactly it is doing, so that it is easy to understand. Okay.